Yo, what's up guys? My name is PhaseOne. I'm going to be taking you through all the metal stuff that I do. I've had a lot of questions about that, so I'm going to run you through it. Let's do it.
Sweet.
So the song I'm going to be showing you is my collab with Periphery, the vocalist Spencer. If you haven't heard it, it sounds a little something like this. So I'm just going to run you through all the different sections that I do. I'll take you through the guitar parts, the bass and the sub, and then all the drums separately. So we'll start off with the guitar. So this is a recorded guitar that's kind of, I've ended up chopping up the audio by itself. You'll hear it's quite tinny. It's quite, has a lot of high frequency on it, which is done purposely. Normally metal guitar wouldn't have so much high frequency on it, but because I'm blending, I guess, the metal section with, I guess, dubstep or EDM, these sections have to almost compete with the drops and everything. So the style of production is a little bit different to what a normal metal producer would do. So there's quite a lot of layers here, so let me show you this. This is the recorded guitar. And you'll see there's pretty minimal processing. You've just got a bit of multiband compression on there, a bit of EQ taking away. I've got some group processing as well. A bit of amp on there just to add a bit of high end, tiny bit of OTT. It's pretty basic, and then there's a gate just to cut off the end of the sound. So it's really minimal processing. I think as long as you get a good recording of the actual instrument to begin with, the less processing you have to do, the better, to be honest. So that's the recorded guitar. I'm also layering it with a synth, and the synth is called Heavier 7-string. It looks a little something like this, and it's a beast of a plugin. It's so much that it can do. You can get so many cool metal sounds out of it. Let me play that by itself. So it's sounds pretty much like a legit guitar. So I end up layering that with the real guitar just to get some extra, just because I can, really. So together you'll hear it kind of. So you get the kind of nice tone out of this one, but then I've definitely boosted the higher end on this one just for that crispiness. Let me just mute the vocals for a sec. Also, I've got the same plugin doing this little lead thing here. Sounds pretty legit to me. For the average listener, I guess, if you're a guitar connoisseur, you'd be like, that sounds interesting. But for the purpose of this, I think it works. It's still electronic music at the end of the day. So it works perfectly for this. I've just done some subtle automation using the utility on the gain. Just as you can see here, all that is basically whenever there's a kick, it's basically my own little version of a sidechain, just to allow that tiny little bit of room for the kick to shine through without it sounding too, without the guitar sounding too taken away. That's very subtle, so that's nothing too crazy. Then I've got some bass, recorded bass. Basically sounds like this. Playing the same thing, but it's a bass guitar. Played a few different versions of it. The processing on that, I've actually cut it off close to 100 hertz for a reason, because I'm also layering a sub underneath that as well, which is doing the low end. So the bass guitar itself is getting cut off at just before 100 hertz, just to allow room for the sub to kind of take over that low end, because at the end of the day, This is still EDM, and we need this section to compete with the bass drop. So like normal metal producing, they wouldn't normally use a sub, but for this it's EDM, so we gotta make it loud and bright. That's the sub. Yeah, and then the sub I'm just kind of rolling off. It's all just taking over that low end there. So yeah, altogether the guitar sections sound like this. A lot of people ask me about my drums. It's all about this good sample choice. Half the stuff I use these days is stuff that I was using when I used to produce metal bands and my bands. I've got this is my metal transient section, which is basically just snares and toms. I add I use this plugin a lot, Transient Master. It just kind of makes those the transients of the snare and the toms a lot more punchier and brighter and louder. So I tend to use that on most of my drums. Same with my dubstep drums. I use this a lot, just subtly, just to get a bit more attack out of it. Then this is like, so that's nice and punchy, these drums now. I just kind of program everything with samples mostly. That's what I'm used to. It works for me. It's more visual. I've got for my drums on this particular track, I've got this channel panned to the left a little bit, and this one panned to the right a little bit. So it just kind of gives that space in the stereo sphere. And then I've got another group called Metal 2, which is basically more the overheads and cymbals and everything. I've got like some snare tails here as well. But yeah, just by itself, because it kind of sounds like this. It's kind of like what you'd get, like if you were to record an actual drum kit, you'd have overhead mics. It's kind of that. That's kind of what I'm going for, like a bit of like room sound. Like this has like a bit of reverb on there as well. But yeah, but it always comes down to sample choice. Like it took me a long time to get to basically build this drum kit that kind of sounded like a legit like metal drum kit to me, and I basically use the same samples for most of my songs that I use like metal sections in. Yeah, just like search hard for samples, and if you find a good sample, the less processing you have to do to it to begin with, like the better really. This is what it sounds like all together. And then there's like the chorus as well, which is a bit more melodic. Yeah. And yeah, also check out this plugin, Heavy 7 Strings, because it yeah, and you can literally just type in the MIDI, and there's lots of different like modulations you can change, like the palm muting and everything, by using these things. The modulation is set to like the palm muting pressure and everything, so definitely worth checking out. It's a very cool plugin, and I've used it a little bit on this album. Most of it's just normal guitar, but yeah, I've used this plugin quite a bit on this album, so check it out. That's just a bit of an insight into how my metal sections work, because a lot of people have asked me, so there you go. Till next time, guys, this is PhaseOne signing out. Peace.
Yes, you